In today's video, I wanted to talk about something that I've been thinking a lot about for a while now. A question I commonly get is, how do you stay motivated to create art? Or where do you get your inspiration from? Where do you get your ideas from? One word: obsessions. These days, I've found that inspiration or motivation is so hard to come by that when I get inspiration or motivation to work on something, if I find myself super obsessed with something to the point where I can only create with crayons for a month or two, or 3 or 4, I am going to run with it. I am going to take advantage of that motivation and just run it dry. These obsessions come and go quite frequently, like, I don't know, the phases of the moon. 1 month I'm obsessed with crayons. This month I'm obsessed with worms, apparently. We'll get into that. Sadly, motivation or inspiration isn't something I can just tell you how to get, but there are a few tips and tricks you can maybe use with the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. If you don't know what Skillshare is, it's the online learning community with thousands of creatives like you teaching classes on how to be creative in art, illustration, cooking, baking, you name it. Like I mentioned, productivity or motivation isn't something that we can just give to you, but there are a lot of really useful tips in Brooke's class, Easy Productivity Tips for Artists. She gives you a lot of tips on how to organize your goals, how to keep yourself motivated with rewards, a lot of little tips and tricks that you don't normally think would affect your productivity and motivation, but you know what? Having a clean office and workspace can definitely help me. You can get access to thousands of other useful classes just like this one at Skillshare at less than $10 a month. You can even get their Skillshare Premium, or the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get 30% off an annual premium membership so you can explore your creativity. Even if you've already had a free trial of Skillshare, you can still take advantage of this offer to get a full year of unlimited learning and creative exploration. So, how about those worms? So let me tell you about these worms and how my weird brain works, how I get very obsessed with one thing for a while, create the heck out of it, beat the dead horse, wring that idea dry, and just overall just get very obsessed with things. Look at it this way. You know how you find a new anime and you get super into it? You are drawing all the characters, you're drawing all of the fan art, you're watching every episode, you're looking up every single little extra information you can about these characters and the story and behind the scenes, and just, you're obsessed. You're obsessed with it. Well, I might not get super into fandoms, but I do get super into weird and silly ideas like worms. This is how my brain works. It is how I create, I suppose. I just get very into a creative idea. I create the heck out of it, and I move on to the next thing. It's exactly how the year of the crayon got created. I was super into creating with crayons. I still am. Don't you worry. I am not ditching the year of the crayon. But I'm just taking a little break, a little obsession break with worms right now. If you're familiar with my prompt series, it's how it went with that. I would go through a phase where I was doing cutout art. I went through a phase where I was doing black and white art. I went through a phase where I was doing sewing projects, working with different mediums, digital art, and now worms. So where did these worms come from? It all started a couple of weeks ago when I was playing Fall Guys with a friend on stream, and his character had these little, I don't think they're actually worms. The character's skin was like an ogre or something, and there were these little pink hairs coming off of it, which really looked like worms. I think it's just hair. I don't know what it is. Either it's very thick hair or there are worms coming out of this ogre's head. Either way, I saw them when I was doodling on that 75-foot long doodle, and I started to doodle these little worms coming out of holes, and I just thought they were really cute, and I wanted to keep drawing worms. I took the inspiration from that 75-foot long doodle and I started to create an illustration with just worms wiggling all over the place, doing curly cues, going inside and outside of each other, just all over the page, kind of like a maze. It's very similar to my ant illustrations, but with worms. I also found that this was a really good opportunity for me to practice using my gouache or acrylic gouache, whichever you want to call it. I don't know if it's acrylic, I don't know if it's gouache. but it's acrylic gouache. So I created an illustration of worms and I had so much fun with it. I just thought it was colorful and fun and silly, and I just liked the vibe. And next thing you knew, I was creating a 24 by 36 inch painting of worms. But this time, one of the worms was spelling in cursive the word worms. I really liked the look of it. I thought it was just really fun how subtle the word worms was in between all of these worms. And it got me the idea of creating a series of illustrations of these worms spelling out naughty words. But for the sake of this video, I'm keeping things a little more PG and the worms are spelling out heck. Excuse my language. So here we have our worms just wiggling all over the place with one of them spelling heck in the middle. The colors are a little strange. I used the color olive, which looked a lot more green on the package. A little disappointed that it's a little more brown, yellow mustard than I was hoping for. But once I added this really nice earthy toned pinky purple worm color, I absolutely fell in love with this illustration and I think it's just so much fun. We've got our worms, they're spelling heck. They're adorable, I love them. I love my worms, what can I say? So after I created this heck worm illustration, I wanted to create another illustration of worms, but this time I wanted to break the border. Breaking the border is something I absolutely love doing with my illustrations. Either I create a square or circle illustration, and outside of that illustration, continues the illustration. So we have this sort of cropped grass circle in the middle, and then we have our worms squirming all outside of the border of this illustration, and I just had so much fun with them. I think something I really missed with the heck worms is that in the original worm illustration, it was vertical, or rather portrait. So the worms had a lot more flowing to them, and they could just be flowy, and I really liked that. So with this illustration, I wanted to build the worms going upwards and just squirming all over the place, being windy, wormy, squirmy. I also really wanted to focus on bright and vivid colors because the previous illustration was a little disappointedly earthy. I love earthy colors, but that one was just so earthy. I really wanted to go bright this time. So we have our very limey green grass and then our bubblegum pink worms. And I couldn't resist adding even more color to this illustration. So at the end, I added some little flowers here and there, as well as breaking the border with grass in the bottom right corner. I just really wanted to play around with this illustration with obviously breaking the border as I do, but also just experimenting with really painted, stroked, textured sort of things, just trying out things I don't normally try, just really embracing the texture of the medium, the paints. I just want to play around and try new things, and I think that's part of what keeps me motivated is trying new things and not just getting stuck in a slump of doing the same thing over and over and getting bored with it, just trying new things. I think that's probably my biggest tip or takeaway from this video is that getting outside of your comfort zone and trying new things and coming up with different ideas and just seeing what works. Maybe doodle on a 75-foot long piece of paper. Maybe play some video games. I mean, honestly, if you told me that downloading Fall Guys and then playing with a friend on stream would result in my next obsession of painting worms for days, weeks, and then having a whole art show gallery of worms and becoming a world-famous worm artist known worldwide as the Worm Girl. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Motivation? I guess what I'm trying to say is that you never know where you're going to find motivation, and I think that's partially why a lot of us have been feeling drained lately. Because the world is on fire, we aren't able to leave the house, experience new things, see the world, get inspired. So you kind of have to make do with what you have, and I hope you guys can find motivation. I hope you can find your worms. So there it is. My little lesson of today's video is if you can find inspiration, when you do find that inspiration, that motivation to create, grab it, take it, squeeze it, and run with it. Don't look back, even if it means creating 20,000 worm illustrations. Create while you have that drive. Don't let other people tell you that you're drawing too many worms. If you're happy, just do it. Just create the dang thing. And that's it. That is my little video about my obsessions and my current worm motivation. Thank you guys so much for watching this wormy illustration video. I hope you guys can find inspiration wherever that may be. Thank you so much to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Go out there, get creative, start learning a new skill, get motivated, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay golden. Bye.